Hey everybody, this is Sheets, and we're going to take our second look at the UFC card for this coming weekend. Again, this is kind of the new process, is instead of just doing one DFS video Thursday, then a betting breakdown Friday, and then a lineup construction video Saturday, we're going to continue to kind of track my thoughts throughout the course of the week as new information comes in. And new information coming in is what that really means is as information comes in that I see. So we kind of track my thoughts throughout the course of the week. And for me, it's very useful to see how much my takes get influenced by other content, by new information, and things like that. So I do encourage you to watch the first installment of this, which was I think a couple of days ago, where I get my first look at the card. The props were already out, but they've tightened up a little bit. Um, First thing I would say, well, we're looking at fight odds here. Let's pull up. So we look at the investigation to perennial nerve damage, which is something else. Let's get the lineups. DraftKings up here, but we are going to go in order again of fight odds. And again, just to kind of recap, I still think that the Pierre Rodriguez play is a very, very strong play based on style. You know, Knutson is an extremely strong striker and has a very, very big edge as far as that goes. But her takedown defense has been at best suspect, and Pierre Rodriguez has shown that she has the capability of taking advantage of that. So it's one of those situations where, I mean, I do think it's pretty binary. If Knutson can stuff the takedowns, I mean, it's going to be kind of a cakewalk for her. But if she can't, I mean, you're talking about a very, very live underdog that can also score quite a bit. So I think that Pierre Rodriguez still remains a very, very strong um, DFS play. I'm backing off a little bit on my take of it being a great bet, though, because again, it's I'm not sure, what the odds are of her being able to initiate her takedowns. All I know is if she does initiate her takedowns and they are successful, and she wins, you know what I mean? Then it's going to score well, and based on these odds, it's going to happen about 33% of the time. So at that price, I think I'm kind of down with that. But as far as me being able to suggest that this line is wrong for some reason, enough to bet it, I'm probably not there. Davy Grant, Ramon Tavares, is this line movement? Let me just see. Right now, it's a straight pick 'em, and nah, it's about the same. Tavares is 8,200 versus 8K. Um, I still am on the Tavares side. I think he's a little more dynamic. I think his inside the distance line is a little stronger as well. Let's take a look at that. Tavares by inside the distance is plus 195 as opposed to Grant plus 250. Not a huge difference, but I think enough where I would give him the edge. And as we learned so painfully hard last week, fading this 8,200 8K fight, you do so at your own peril. It just makes so many of your lineups work that if it does get there, you really don't have to worry too much about anything else usually. So I'm not going to make the mistake again. I'm going to make sure to get some of this fight regardless. And Tavares, I mean, clearly to me has the bigger upside. Miranda Maverick versus Jamie Lynn Horth. I'm really considering changing my tune on this one. I thought the other day that Maverick lacked enough upside to pay off her price. I mean, when you look at her previous results, she gets her takedowns, but she doesn't really just rack up the points. I think none of these three fights are particularly great as far as scoring goes, specifically, obviously the last two, but even the one before that, I remember that fight, and she just destroyed Cachoeira. It looked like it was like she was toying with her, and yet still, and she got the sub after all of that control time, and yet still only scored 104. It's a tough price to pay for her skill set. It just really is. Now, again, I will see one down here where she got 5 takedowns and 9 control times and 9 control minutes and all these strikes, right? That's what you're going to need is to get all of these strikes. Um, I do think that she can do it in this matchup. I think Jamie Lynn Horth is particularly awful. Um, so if in fact she comes out very aggressively, Miranda Maverick, I think that her chance of paying off the price is a little bit wider than, or a little bit greater than I thought. So I'm going to put her in my decent favorite list as opposed to my fade list. The other reason I'm doing that is again, as we went through this card, you didn't really see all that much as far as like locks go. So I'm going to put her in the mix here. All right, Lima against Johns. I'm pretty much the same on this one. I think instinctively that Johns is probably a pretty decent underdog at his price. Um, he doesn't really score all that well, but again, at 7,300, it's not as big of a deal, especially on only a 13 fight card. And he can get takedowns as well. Uh, Lima inside at plus 190 is just not quite there for me. At 8,900, you really need to be pushing an inside the distance line of close to plus 110 at least. So I think that this fight is probably sort of a pass. If anything, Miles Johns, just for, I don't want to say line value, because I don't really, well, I mean, is this line value? He's plus 205. I mean, not really. So I don't know. Maybe this is kind of a fade. I certainly prefer, for example, Pierre Rodriguez to Miles Johns, because I do think that if in fact Pierre Rodriguez does win, she's like always. I think if both of these fighters win, I think that Rodriguez outscores Johns a good, a high percentage of the time. All right, Sean Woodson versus Padilla. Um, I still am of the belief that Woodson is not a really high DraftKings scorer. So I think that his inside the distance line probably supports that assertion to some degree. He Woodson inside is plus 440, and Padilla inside is plus 275. Is this line movement? Hold on. It's minus 155 versus plus 130. And I guess this is about right. I mean, if anything, there's maybe like a shred of line value in Padilla here. Um, I actually think Padilla, I mean, if boy, I definitely think Padilla is the better DraftKings play. Okay, so why do I say that? I think he's just got much more dynamic outcomes. Like you see in his last fight, he had a first round knockdown plus sub, right? Two fights before that, he had a first round KO over Julian Erosa. All right, so he got beat by Nelson or whatever. But I think there's room for upside from him. I think that Sean Woodson just kind of is what he is. He's really, really, kind of a good fighter, but he's sort of low volume. You know, he did get four takedowns against Bazooka, which is kind of that's kind of scary, because that could end up scoring well. I just feel as though he's just kind of really on the outside looking in as far as priority play. So I guess the one change is I am putting Padilla in as part of my underdog pool here. All right, moving up, Alvarez against Jakar Close. I'm just kind of locked into the idea that Close has no chance here. And listen, it's plus 330 or whatever. So I'm going to need a reason to play a plus 330 underdog anyway. And I just think Alvarez just has this whole thing covered, whether it be by striking or by takedowns or subs or whatever it is. The only question, obviously, is whether he's going to pay his price. He's minus 140 inside. I mean, that's pretty strong. Plus 250 in the first round. That's pretty strong. There's really just nothing not to like about this play here. I mean, and the price is reasonable enough at 9,300. I mean, I would play Alvarez over Maverick, right? Or would I? Hold on, let's think about this for real. I just for whatever reason, I have this thought that Maverick can put up 130. Will she? I don't know, but I just have this thought that she can. And I don't think Alvarez is putting up 130. So yeah, I'm still gonna consider these two the same. And what's good about the Maverick play, and the more I talk this through, is that there are variations on this slate where you don't need 130. You know what I mean? Like if like no underdogs win or whatever it is, and you just need to get six of sixes. You know, Maverick is a very, it seems like a very, very safe play. You know, in a weird sense, is she more safe than Alvarez? Like, I don't see many variations where Horth wins. Where Drakkar close, I mean, you could certainly make cases for him winning. I mean, he has four wins in a row, right? I mean, how can you say, including a first round KO over Joe Selecki? What was that? Did he like body slam him? Is that what happened? I forget what happened with him. Um, so it is kind of ignorant to say he has no chance, which is how I started off this breakdown. Um, am I going to end up doing this? I might actually. Oh God. All right, so that's why I go through like three or four iterations of this. I'm gonna go back to my word and say that that Alvarez is not a lock to win, and that I probably will place him close. And I am getting probably overwhelmed by game log watching, but how do you not play somebody like this at 6,800? All right, uh, we'll move on. Azatar versus Michael Johnson. Something about this fight just kind of stinks. You know, you have a obviously a very, very strong inside the distance prop here because Azatar does nothing but win or lose fights in the first round. Fight ends inside is actually only minus 200. I mean, I thought it was going to be wider than that. But you get this idea that Johnson is not really going to, I don't say not much of a finisher, but that's at least the impression you get. You know, that if Johnson wins, he's just going to probably just grind Azatar out. So this fight is a little kind of annoying. Now, what is Azatar inside of plus 235? I mean, that has to be respected, right? At 7,500. I just get this sense that he just stinks. You know, like he was on his way. He got a win over Kamal Worthy, and then he went off for 2 years, and he's just not even survived a round since he's been back. Um, this just seems like one of those plays that's going to look good on paper because of his inside the distance line. And at the end of the day, you're just going to say, "Oh my God, I bet this dude again." So I don't know. We're gonna reconsider this one. We'll keep him in the mix for now, but I can see a world where I end up fading him. And the Michael Johnson again, like I, how do you play him? You know, at 8,700, is it boring decision here? Well, four takedowns, but that's not the way this fight's gonna go. You know, like DeCasey, 64 points. He did get this 103 ball against Patrick. A knockdown and a takedown. I don't know. I'm inclined to fade him, but this is why we go through it a couple of days at a time. We'll revisit this one as well. But again, let's take a look at the inside the distance line. What did I say it was? I mean, plus 125. I mean, it's perfectly reasonable, right? At 8,700. So on the numbers, this is a good fight. Something about it bothers me, but I think at the end of the day, I will end up playing it. But we'll see. All right, so now we're back to this thing that I kind of put off before, this Navajo Sterling versus Tacos fight. Um, I don't know what to do. Again, I'm still here. Let's take a look at the props at least. I mean, Sterling inside, it's only minus 210. Okay. Not only that, Sterling wins round one is only plus 175. And I say that only because I mean he is a full price. You know, he is a full 9,600 here. Um, let me just make sure that that's accurate. At 9,600, you better be right. You know, and there's a lot of variance in this matchup. You know, you have Navo Sterling, who's no one has really seen before. Okay, and this Tokos guy, he's certainly not great, okay? But he's got some wins. He's not just the worst fighter in the world. He got first round KO'd by Ming Yang Zhang, who we saw was a killer. He got subbed first round by Umar Sy. Um, I have this feeling he might not be that bad. I don't know what else to say. When I say not that bad, maybe he's good enough. Oh my God, this went from arm injury. Maybe he survives a round. And if he survives a round, then you're just not going to want to have Navajo Sterling at 9,600. So I'm inclined to be underweight on this Sterling until I maybe look at some tape and feel that he's really just going to take care of him in the first round because that is what you're going to need. I mean, at least. Um, all right, Daniel Marcos against Adrian Yanez. I mean, the more I think of this fight, the more I am convinced that it's probably going to be an entertaining fight that you're just going to want to fade, I guess, or play the underdog, but just because it's going to be probably all striking, And when you ever have an all striking fight, it's usually, unless there's a huge inside the distance line edge here, it's probably usually a fade. So let's just go and look at the inside the distance line. You have Marcos inside at plus 180. I mean, not great. Uh, what's his price here exactly? 8,500 plus 180. Again, just not great. I'd rather play Michael Johnson. Okay. On the other hand, Yanez, you don't need as much. Yanez is only 7,700. What's his? You probably still need like a plus 230 to be a hashtag good play, and it's not quite that at plus 270. So it's a tough fight to call. There's no way I'm going to prioritize this one. But I'll tell you, when I started building lineups a little bit, kept getting kind of sucked into this one just because of the price. Um, but if instead of that, I play that Tavares fight, then I don't have to worry about making a decision here. So definitely not a fight to prioritize. But if you get to it, you're just going to have to live with it, I guess. All right, so this one I'm kind of the same on Petrino Jacoby. The more I look at this fight, the more I think you just have to play it, and I do think you have to play both sides. Petrino inside is going to be probably minus 130 inside the distance again, yeah, and he is, which is going to make him pretty popular, which means that you have to consider the underdog. And Jacoby inside at plus 420, that's not that great, but it's not terrible either. If that happens 20% of the time, I mean, think about that. 20% of the time, he's gonna get a finish at a very, very reduced mutual, as my friend would say. Uh, his price is only 7,100. So again, it's on the border. I'd rather it be a little better. Rather be more like plus 300 or plus 350. But the fact that Petrino is going to be pretty popular makes this play just a little bit better. So I do like both sides. This maybe I'm being stubborn, thinking Jacoby might be a little better than he is, but his money line is not terrible at plus 250. I mean, it's not like he's any worse than well, he is a little worse, I guess, than Pierre Rodriguez, and I guess he is a little worse than Miles Johns. Ugh. Nonetheless, I'm still maintaining my stubbornness on this one. Maybe, it's only Wednesday. Maybe I have a couple of days to talk myself out of this. Right now, obviously, Petrino's a very strong play. It's just a question of whether you want to play both of them. Manel Kopp against Bruno Silva. I maintain that Manel Kopp is probably a poor GPP play, poor DFS play. His inside the distance line is just very, very poor for his price. He's plus 190 inside, and his price is was it like 9K or something? I mean, 9,200, that's just really poor. And in the absence of takedowns, which is really not his thing, it's just you just really can't play him. Now he is very quick, and he's going to be kind of tough to track down. He's probably going to piece the dude apart, but It's not going to be good enough. If anything, you take your shot on Silva, who is just kind of a wrecking machine. Now, again, it's going to be tough for Silva to get to him, right? It's going to be tough for him to track him down, right? But I mean, ball don't lie. I mean, if he does get there, he's gonna score, and he's gonna score at 7K. So I think it's much more important to play Silva um than to play top. But again, and we're kind of transitioning into how to play GPPs and with leverage and things like that. I still think that somebody like Jacoby might be just as good of a play because, again, I don't think Cop is going to be particularly popular. I mean, everybody's seeing the same thing I am with respect to his internals. So I think that Silva's going to get less leverage, but I think apples to apples, I think Silva is a better play than probably all these underdogs we talked about. Like Silva, let's compare him to all these guys, like Jacoby, Johns, even Rodriguez. Um, what other underdogs we talk about? Even Yanez. Uh, so I mean, Miles Johns we talked about a little bit. I think that Bruno Silva, apples to apples, is probably the best underdog on the slate because if he wins, I mean, he's going to smash. He just has to. And he's only 7K. So there you go. Let's move on. We have two more fights to go, and I've not changed my mind yet. The content community is trying to do it though. They're trying to make a case to me why Cub Swanson is a good play here. I am just not a believer as of yet. I just can't see it. I just know what I see, and I see Billy Quarantillo. His exact skill set is pushing cardio. And when your skill set is pushing cardio and you're fighting someone 42 years old or whatever, I just feel as though it's a DFS play you just have to make. Okay. He can get takedowns, he can get volume, he can get finishes, like just everything that you need in DFS. I think this sets up perfectly for him. And his inside the business line is not bad either, at plus 180 or whatever it is at 8,400. That's not that bad. Plus he's got some takedowns or whatever. I'm continuing to support the idea that what's his name? That Billy Quarantillo is the best, probably the best, most confident play on the slate. It just has to be. But hey, wouldn't be the first time I had played Billy Quarantillo and got punished for it. I mean, just look at his game log. It's not like he wins every fight. Got smoked in his last one. Two before that, we made this incredible case for the same thing that he was going to do be a cardio bully of Edson Barboza. Next thing you know, the fight was over and he got smoked. Okay. Um, but nonetheless, this is still where I am. He scores well all the time, all the time, you know. So this to me is the easiest play on the board and remains that way. And we get to the main event, and I still think that it's sort of an, I want to say, easy fight to play both sides. Um, that's where I was the other day. You asked me the other day what I think we should do, and we should clip that. I think that I would have said, yeah, you have to play both sides. I do see variations where this fight goes to decision and Buckley wins and doesn't smash. I definitely see that. Okay. Like if Covington can get his share of takedowns and neutralize Buckley for some of the rounds, but Buckley outstrikes him for most of the rounds, but doesn't finish him. I do see more variations where this fight's busts than I did the other day. So there, I am not going to be locking this fight in, metaphorically, or actually. Um, but I still think 5 rounds on a card that really has not shown too much with respect to upside. I think it's kind of tough to ignore. And clearly, I mean, Covington at only plus 230 at 7,200 with 5 rounds and takedowns and all of it, and very, very easy underdog to play. Um, so I think this fight is it's a great fight, DFS wise, but it's not like a lock fight. So I guess that's where we are as of, Wednesday. I reiterate, Rodriguez, good solid underdog based on style. I reiterate, I'll throw Padilla into the mix a little more as far as a good underdog. Maybe I'll talk myself out of close. Azatar, I'd love to talk myself out of. Jacoby, I'd love to talk myself out of, but I haven't yet. I'm upping Bruno Silva here, just for all the reasons I mentioned. But again, not as much leverage, so maybe not as big of a deal. And Covington remains very easy underdog. So for me, best underdogs are Covington, Rodriguez, and then maybe kind of a tie between the others I mentioned. Like given the leverage aspect and everything else, I would say Padilla, Azatar, Jacoby, Silva, all are pretty equal, all things considered. And then as far as mid-range guys go, Quarantillo, I've spoke about ad nauseum. And then as far as big favorites, I'm moving Miranda Maverick up on the list. Um, Alvarez remains good. Petrino remains good. Uh, so far, full fades for me. Cub Swanson, Manel Kopp, probably the Yanez Marcos fight. Probably going to be underweight, at least on Sterling, maybe completely full fade. Um, Woodson fade. Probably this Lima fight I'll end up fading. Not going to play a lineup with Horth. And I'm not going to forget to play this Davy Grant, Ramon Tavares fight. That's where we are as of now. And I'll probably give an update tomorrow. See you later.